The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, those of you that have followed my career, God bless you. But those that have followed my career know that I'm pretty genuine. And I'm going to tell you what I think. And I'm going to do that today, but it flies in the face of just common sense, what I'm about to say today. And I'm not doing it for reaction or any more YouTube views. We appreciate it when you hit like and subscribe. We do. But this is from the heart that I'm going to get to right off the top. So I want to do that. But also, coming up, we will visit with Ollie Lane, former offensive lineman. VFL joins us to talk about Tennessee, Florida, this day in Tennessee sports history. Stat of the day: the Vols' lack of splash plays, explosive plays, is the issue, and that's not just on Nico Iamaleava. We'll discuss the most unlikely losses to Florida, and should this series even continue? I think that's going to depend in large part with your age. I absolutely think so, but we'll discuss that. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. And Caleb Calhoun, how are you, sir?
I am good. Happy Friday, Dave.
Happy Friday to you as well. We've got a lot to get to. Do want to take a moment to welcome on a brand new advertiser that we have, and we're certainly pleased to have them on board. As you know, we have a lot of listeners outside of Knoxville, so this is applicable to East Tennessee, but Double D Piping may sound like a piping company, but it's not. It's your one-stop shop to be able to handle all of your fire protection needs. So we welcome Double D Piping onto the program. I'll tell you more about those because we've got a fiery, tough question. How about that, Caleb? Does that work for you? Fiery, tough question.
Love
Today's
it.
question brought to you by Double D Piping, handling all of your fire suppression needs.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right. Caleb, I hate when people do this. It's the most overused term in sports. And our most overused term is generational, you and me. I mean, that's just kind of our go-to, and I think we're kind of getting bitten in the rear maybe with Nico. We'll see. But we've used that term. But the term I'm going to use that I absolutely detest in sports, and please click the like and subscribe button, is must win. Okay. Other than somebody goes home and their season is over, there's really no must win. Right, Caleb? Theoretically.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, this is on a larger level. It's one of the things I don't like about the expanded playoff is every game used to be a must win.
True.
But I miss the days of the must win college football games. That was my favorite era of college football. But yes, now, no.
Okay. I'm going to fly in the face of that, and I'm going to fly in the face of what I traditionally believe. I think Tennessee, Florida is a must win, and I'm not adding a caveat to any of that. Click the like and subscribe button. I believe to make the college football playoff that Saturday's game against Florida is a must win. And that is even if Tennessee were to beat Georgia and Alabama. Now you're saying, Dave, that would be 10-2, and you'd have wins against Georgia and Alabama. Surely they would make it. Caleb, I have retorts to those comments, but I want to let you go first because I know you're not too crazy about my stance on this, but I'm going to beef it up as we go along. So I'll give you the first response here when I say that this game is a must win, because despite what happens the rest of the season, which could include a win against Georgia and Alabama, I do not believe that Tennessee would make the college football playoff at 10-2 with a loss to Arkansas and a potential loss to Florida, both teams of which I think are at best an 8-4 team this year. Could be proven wrong, but with those losses on your schedule, and I believe there will be at least 5 10-2 teams, I think that would crush you from getting in the college football playoff. So you tell me. I'm breaking an old rule of don't use must win, because it's essentially a way of just poking the bear. When I was in radio, you could always get the phones lit up. Is this a must win? That's not what I'm trying to do. I just really believe that Tennessee, if they were to have 2 ugly losses, they're not going to make the college football playoff, even if they were to beat Alabama and Georgia. Am I crazy, Caleb?
You're insane.
That's crazy.
Okay.
You're insane. And I'm
at a 3:45 a.m. production meeting that you would say that, so I had the button ready. But go ahead.
Okay. Let me say this up front. I would say it's a must-win because you put the pressure on them to beat Alabama and Georgia, and also it would damage the psyche of Tennessee. All those things are true. But if you say they were to lose to Florida and then beat Alabama and Georgia and finish 10-2. By the way, if they beat Alabama and Georgia, they're going to go play for the SEC championship at that point.
Okay.
If you were, provided Ole Miss loses another game, which I think they will. If you were to say that the runner-up in the SEC championship game wouldn't be able to make the 12-team playoff, that's crazy. Dave, 2007 LSU. In the BCS era, right? This isn't the college football playoff of 4 teams. This is the college football playoff of 2 teams. Only 2 teams got in. They got into the national title game with a loss at home to an 8-5 Arkansas team.
Okay,
and
wait.
a loss to Kentucky that finished 6-6.
Okay, wait. I gave you a lot of rope there, but you can't go too far back into history.
I can, because the further back you go, the harder it is to get into a playoff with 2 losses.
Right. But I mean, you can't go too far back into history because we are in uncharted territory. We have a college football playoff committee that is going to decide these things, and I don't trust them. I don't trust them to treat Tennessee fairly. I think that was evident in 2022 when they were ranked behind Alabama despite beating them and having the same record at the time. I think that hinged on a couple of different things. One, Hendon Hooker being hurt, which it's a TV show. They want the stars out there, so that hurt Tennessee, no doubt. But the other is the way they lost to South Carolina. They didn't just lose. They got hammered. Maybe Connor Stallions was a part of that. I don't know. But losing to 2 potentially 7-5 teams, including 1 at home, and not having a high-flying offense, which we'll see if they have later in the season. But to me, that's as harmful, Caleb, as that loss against South Carolina. You retort. It's our Fiery Hot Today's Tough Question, brought to you by Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
All right, is Florida must win for the Vols? Yes, 96%. I don't know that everybody took into account what I said, and it's not just the overall feel of the team and that the wheels could come off. It is, you've got to win this game to get in the playoffs. Caleb, your retort?
There's not going to be fewer than 4 SEC teams in the college football playoff. Can we at least agree on that? I mean, I think you guys, I think many people are getting very stuck in the 90s of this idea that there's some anti-SEC bias. It's the opposite, guys. The SEC is going to get the special treatment over any other conference. Let's get that out of the way. It's also Tennessee is going to get the special treatment because Tennessee is a TV draw. So no, there's not going to be a bias against Tennessee. At 10-2, I don't think every 10-2 SEC team would be an automatic bid. I didn't think that at the start of the year because I thought you could have 5 or 6 10-2 SEC teams. I'm wrong on that now. Dave, there's not going to be more than 3 teams in the SEC that are 10-2. So what you're telling me right now is that with a straight face, that they would take no more than 2 SEC teams, that's actually on the table. That's not on the table. There's no way in hell that's on the table.
No. I think they could take 4. So let's play this scenario out for a second. All right. Ole Miss wins out. Texas wins out or loses 1. So they're playing in the SEC championship game, right?
Yes.
So then you're 10-2. Let's say you beat Alabama and Georgia and you're all 3 together. What are they going to look at? This is a television show.
Wait, they're not all 3 together. You've already got that mixed up. If Tennessee and Ole Miss both went out, well, then Georgia has 3 losses. They're out. Tennessee's going over Georgia. That's not a debate.
Okay. So do you feel confident that with the same record that Tennessee wins? And then we'll take it in more of an abstract view of why this is a must win for Tennessee.
Well, do I feel confident that with the same record as Georgia? Well, if they have the same record as Georgia, then you got to go back to Ole Miss and say Ole Miss is going to lose and not have and not have multiple losses. Dave, there's not really a scenario at this point, unless you think Arkansas wins out, which ain't happening. There's not really a scenario I can see where Tennessee – I don't think there's a possible scenario where Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, and Texas all finish with 10-11 wins. There's too much playing each other. Now where the threat is, and I'll give you where the threat is that LSU and Texas A&M are just hovering around with 1 loss, and we forgot about them because they lost to Power 5 schools at the beginning of the year. They've won every game since, and all of a sudden, they are the biggest threats to Texas in the SEC at the moment. But there's still a lot of football to play. Those two have to play each other. Dave, I don't think it's possible that more than 3 SEC teams finish 10-2 or better. I don't think that's going to happen.
Click on the let's switch up the poll question for a second. I want to share some numbers with you. As the poll question, do you trust the college football playoff committee when it comes to Tennessee? So change it to that because everybody says it's a must win. And from an abstract view, it certainly is. From a big picture view, it certainly is. If Tennessee were to lose 2 in a row, almost like any school with college football playoff hopes and dreams, yes, the wheels could come off. There is no question about that. And then I think you would see the continued pronounced issue at offensive tackle if Tennessee were to lose to Florida this weekend. So I think you would agree that if they lose to Florida, even though mathematically, practically, that it's still possible for them to get in the college football playoff, they're not going to if they lose to Florida. They're not going to beat Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. The realistic fact is they're not going to finish 10-2 if they beat Florida. I framed it in a way to make you know how to let you guys understand how you sound when you say you don't trust the CFP committee, and y'all are still willingly sounding like this. Because
when you say y'all, I'm one of y'all.
I know. So the question is, do you trust the CFP committee when it comes to Tennessee? Yes, Vols are too good of a draw. No, there's a conspiracy against UT. Come on, guys. Y'all really think there's a conspiracy against Tennessee?
Yep.
Tennessee is going to get.
Do you want to know why?
Why?
I can share the numbers with you. If you'll, you've got to promise though to be open-minded because these are numbers that I worked hard to dig up.
All right, let's go. Hit me with it.
Okay. Who do you think the number 1 team in terms of television viewers was last year in 2023? What college football team?
Alabama.
That is correct. A 7.12 ranking.
Okay.
Who's number 2?
Georgia?
No, but we're getting there. Ohio State and Colorado, ironically enough. Ohio State with a 6.05, Colorado with a 6 flat, Georgia with a 5.9. Now, that just sounds like a point, right? But you've worked in television. I've worked in television enough to know that 1 point on a national scale does not equal a couple of $100. It equals millions of dollars, right?
Yes.
Okay. Georgia with a 5.9. Michigan, 5.6. Tennessee, a 4.5. And then Oregon, 4.4. Texas, 4.2, which is a little bit surprising.
Wait, so name every team ahead of Tennessee again.
Alabama, Ohio State, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan.
Okay. With the exception of Colorado, which drew all their ratings in September, by the way.
And that was silly stuff. I mean, we can just go ahead and exclude them altogether if you would like.
Yes. Dave, those other 4 schools were bigger draws. You're skewing this a little bit because it's not like everything being equal, those schools are bigger draws. Those schools were bigger draws because those 4 schools were playing in college football playoff implication games in November and Tennessee wasn't. So people were going to watch them more. Alabama and Georgia played in the SEC championship game. You don't think that marquee game was going to inflate their numbers in a draw? Michigan was playing Ohio State when both teams were undefeated. That's not going to inflate their numbers in terms of being a draw. This is what I'm talking about. Like, you can't just half the draw of TV ratings is what are the college football playoff implications. All things being equal, I guarantee you, all things being equal, Tennessee would draw just as well as all of them. But all things were not equal. Tennessee was,
no way, Caleb.
If Tennessee was in the college football playoff race in November, they would be as much of a draw as Alabama or Georgia. Absolutely.
No, and here's why. Because Alabama has won so much over the past 20 years that they picked up the Saturday alumni fans. The fans that, I'll give you an example. I used to live in Chattanooga. If you grew up in Chattanooga, you're still technically in what state?
You're still technically in Tennessee?
Yeah. But there are as many Georgia and Alabama fans in Chattanooga because why? Because Alabama was good for a long time and Georgia was rising up the ranks. Now, I understand it's right on the border and all that good stuff. But the simple fact is the same reason that my son doesn't make Tennessee football a must-watch is because Tennessee was bad for so long. During that same time, Alabama was dominant. Everybody loves a winner. And Caleb, I think that's, as much as I hate to say it, going to be a factor in the college football playoff committee.
But for one, what you're telling me makes Tennessee look good. Dave, 2022, I just pulled it up. Tennessee was 4th. Now, yes, Ohio State, Alabama, and Michigan were the top 3. But Tennessee was drawing better than Georgia in 2022. So if you were to tell me that this could come down to Alabama and Tennessee, looking at these numbers now, I might be on your side. Alabama and Ohio State, I might be on your side. Those two, I think, may just be natural draws. Ohio State is the one flagship school, Power 5 school, in one of the largest states. And I mean, are they the only blue blood in a state? Are they among blue bloods? Are they in the largest state population-wise? Like, where they're the only school? Like, yes, Florida's larger, but there's 3 flagship schools. So Ohio State, I feel like, commands probably the most, like, within their state. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Maybe Penn State. Maybe Ohio State and Penn State, but Ohio State more.
Yeah, I can completely roll with that. Now, why it's a must-win is bigger than just what we have said to this point. It's also very big in recruiting, and I'm going to explain to you why, and I'm going to tell you some of the visitors that are going to be on campus, but it's not just who's on campus this weekend that's undecided. It's some guys that you wonder if they're wavering a little bit. Again, why this is a must-win, but agreed, I'm twisting the question a little bit on Caleb. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. 60 seconds, recruiting info you need to know. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. truly Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. This is a monstrous recruiting weekend for Tennessee, despite what some people will tell you in recruiting circles. You can bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer every day with better solutions, better technology. Commercial Banks for personal business. Commercial Bank, life made better. Caleb, a lot of the guys that are going to be in town this weekend are 2026 guys, 2027 guys. So there will be a lot of football played out before they make their decision. There is not a fantastic group of undecided guys because that's not the way the calendar works anymore. But Caleb, here's the way Tennessee recruiting works. It's a community effort. And I'm going to use another C word that Caleb kind of gets on me about. It is a culture thing. So Tennessee has recruited elite players like James Pierce is a great example. Mike Matthews is another one that could have gone to any school they wanted to, right?
Correct.
They have gotten them through culture. Well, because of the schedule, it's kind of like a family reunion. I don't know when is the last time you had a family reunion, but for me, it's been about 25 years. And close family still gets together on the holidays, but as far as the Wileys, which was my grandmother's maiden name, we don't get together. And you want this family of players that are led by George McIntyre, the quarterback, who has been actively recruiting for Tennessee, to be together on campus. And you want the environment to be good around them. I want to get to some players that are looking elsewhere based off my sources. But I first want to throw that at you, that Tennessee, because of the schedule, is probably not as solid with the majority of their prospects, as solid as they would like to be.
I think they're not as solid because of the loss last week and what could happen. All right, let me explain something to you guys real quick. The way I think recruiting works, and Dave's covered it more, so I don't want to explain to Dave recruiting when Dave has been way more involved in covering recruits than I have over the years. But from stepping back, you guys remember when you used to play the NCAA football game, the original one, when they had dynasty mode and you had to recruit and you had to have players come in for visits at certain weekends. And like, if they came in for a visit and you lost that game, you almost always lost out on that recruit. Okay. That's not how recruiting typically works in the real world.
No.
When you bring players in, they're judging on, like you said, Dave, you are right, the culture, the excitement of the fan base, the excitement of the stadium, and all that to get swept up. That's a factor. The other factor is what trend is the direction going in. Now, that is where wins and losses matter, but that's not going to be affected by most of the time an individual win or loss. It's an overall conglomerate. So a great example, one of Tennessee's best recruiting weekends ever in the Lane Kiffin year was that 2009 when they lost to UCLA. Remember that? When they lost to UCLA at home?
Well, yeah, but the 2009 class was a bunch of felons.
No, but this was the 2010 class.
Okay.
Yeah. Tennessee lost to UCLA, and I'll never forget, like the next Monday, they picked up 3 commitments. Why? Losing to UCLA didn't signify some downward trend for Tennessee because it was Lane Kiffin's first year, and he could still sell that he was building a program. So all the kids that were there were seeing was just the excitement of the University of Tennessee and the campus in Neyland Stadium. Where Florida is a bit different this time around. It's not like, oh, the kids were in town to witness a loss. No, that's not what matters. What matters is if Tennessee loses to Florida, you start seeing a disturbing trend related to the program that maybe it's not on the upward trajectory we thought under Josh Heupel. And that is the scariest reason that recruits could start flipping. And it's not going to just be the recruits in visiting this weekend, by the way. That'll be the entire class you've got to look at and see who might flip.
How about this? What's more important as a poll question on the YouTube page this weekend against Florida? College football playoff berth or recruiting? How about that? Throw that up there and bank on it. Think it's recruiting. Maybe I'm not as solid as I thought I was. We'll get Caleb's take 30 seconds. Commercial Bank, member FDIC.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
I'll go ahead and say it's more important for recruiting than it is the college football playoff, because I don't think this team, if they were to lose this weekend, is any threat to make a run in the college football playoff, even if they could get in, which I don't think anybody believes would really happen with Georgia and Alabama on the schedule. So if they lose, I think it could have a lasting impact beyond this year. Everything's been groovy for Tennessee. You've been able to point to Joe Milton even and say that's part of the problem, that the offense isn't as great. But come on, Mike Matthews, still got room for you. Got time for you to make big time plays. But now that would all be called into question. And the groovy vibes, I will always say, Caleb, and it's totally innate. You can't put a finger on it, but groovy vibes are what ultimately is the biggest factor in recruiting. It's not winning. It's no longer facilities. Everybody has them. Sure, it's NIL, but everybody's going to be on the same level playing field before too long when it goes through the schools. It's groovy vibes, which you referred to earlier. It's just a feel-good feel for the program. And if Tennessee loses to Florida, vamoose, that's gone.
You are right, but I have to say to you, Dave, one, I'll add to your point. This is what Butch Jones did in good. Butch Jones literally said Tennessee would be able to win some recruits with Alabama because they have a better juice bar than Alabama. Okay, so that's one of the dumbest things in a litany of dumb things. Between me and you, one of the dumbest things by Butch Jones standards is really, really dumb. Okay, so, but yes, he did say that. And you're right. The facilities, the stadium sizes, all that doesn't matter. You are right. In the 90s, Tennessee could perpetually lose to Florida and beat Florida out for recruiting battles because Neyland Stadium was a better place to play than the Swamp. It was. Like, it was decidedly better.
Well, and I don't know if you know this, but they didn't even have an indoor practice facility up until the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Well, I had read in places Spurrier didn't want an indoor practice facility either.
I hadn't heard that, but nevertheless, I mean, their facilities were woefully bad to be a program that had won so many championships.
Yes, Tennessee cashed in on that, on so many schools not being up to date. Now, what I will say is this, where I kind of break with you is that, look, Dave, Tennessee's not going to be able to recruit, period, if they don't make the college football playoff. If they don't make the college football playoff this year, there will be red flags galore surrounding Josh Heupel, and I will be the first one raising them. Okay, because I'll be out here saying year 4, you haven't made the college football playoff. You don't have a starter on your, and if it's because of the offensive line issues that we're all talking about, that's still a red flag because it's year 4 and you don't have a starter on the line that you signed out of high school. So if they don't make the college football playoff, I am all out going to be very, very, very judgmental, raising red flags. And Dave, you're right. Recruiting is vibes. The minute red flags go up around a coach is the minute recruiting classes start to unravel nowadays. I mean, you can't. Have you seen a coach on the hot seat save themselves with a recruiting class? Never happened.
Well, okay. Neither one of us like this guy, but maybe Jimbo Fisher bought himself more time, but he paid out a lot of cash. I'm reaching for an example.
Yeah, they had to open up a checkbook, and it was the worst culture ever created at the time.
They also had to give him a huge buyout, which I'm sure that he told the recruits about as reason that he's not going anywhere. Okay, so here's the prospects you need to know about that, based on my sources I'm hearing, are considering other locales. I'm not raising the red flag. If I had to bet a mortgage payment, I want this very clear. I think Tennessee ends up with definitely 2 of these guys that are currently committed in the Vols number 7 class in the country. and I think they probably end up with 3. I'd go a car payment on 3, not a mortgage. But Jaden Harmon, the linebacker from Rome High School in Georgia, committed. Alabama is doing their best to flip him. Travis Smith, wide receiver. I mean, he's got Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn still after him. He's in Westlake High School in Atlanta. Obviously, that's in Georgia territory. But the guy that I'm most concerned about that we've covered on Hooker's Corner, and I'll tell you how to become a member of Hooker's Corner, is Lagonza Shady Aftermath. No, but his nickname Shady Hayward. I think that's the biggest concern. He went to Georgia last weekend. So if you want to follow the Vols and recruiting and more, have more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and also have the opportunity to win fantastic prizes, all you have to do is be a member of Hooker's Corner. That QR code is right there. If we can drop the link, that would be fantastic. You'll get increased recruiting coverage, more interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and also we'll give away our weekly prizes, which will be a book today to one of our lucky paid members, just $9.98 a month. Be a member, and you can win gifts from Sports Treasures. Sports Treasures, North Knoxville, over 5 million Sports Treasures. Follow on Facebook, Sports Treasures TN, Sports Treasures TN. And don't forget that you can be a part of, just by joining Hooker's Corner, even as a free member, Rick Terry's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge. When we hit 8,000 subscribers, which will be right around the corner. And if you're a free member to Hooker's Corner, you'll be eligible to win a Garmin watch, thanks to our friends at Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler. Rick Terry, ask about the Fire Opals, a Tennessee tradition, affordable game day jewelry. So you can be a free member to qualify for Rick Terry's Grade 8 Garmin Challenge, or a paid member. You're going to be eligible to win weekly prizes. And this month's big-time grand prize, mini autographed helmet, autographed by Dylan Sampson. So we encourage you to join Hooker's Corner. Coming up on the program, we'll visit with VFL Ollie Lane, this day in Tennessee sports history. Tennessee's lack of splash plays, is that a bigger problem, more than offensive tackle, more than Nico struggling on the road, because they just haven't been there against quality opponents? Hang tight with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com, or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Take un momento, please, and click the like button. Make sure you are subscribed so you get notifications. So ring that bell, but click that thumbs up button. Helps us greatly to bring more people into the show, and we appreciate that. We absolutely love your comments and love our advertisers as well. As again, they support us, so support them. Charles says, I found myself humming the tune Medicare Misty throughout the day. It's a great tune. So Medicare Misty's licensed in over 40 states. So wherever you're watching, she can handle all of your Medicare needs for free. And as a matter of fact, Medicare Misty brings you what, the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
All right, Caleb. I'm going to give you 3 opportunities. Now, we did not go over this specific aspect of the show in our 3:45 a.m. production meeting because I knew that Caleb would know the direction I'm going. So I didn't give him anything. You can read about it on offthehooksports.com, but the story went up after we went on the air. So he doesn't know. All right, Caleb, I'm going to give you 3 opportunities to name Tennessee's biggest problem heading into the Florida game, and then I'm going to discuss how they will solve it. All right, Caleb, opportunity number 1.
It's their pass protection.
Okay, pass protection. What say you, committee? The committee says
That's crazy.
Okay, next one, Caleb.
You know, you're so savage. Like, you can disagree without saying my take's crazy. Okay. But
Okay.
I'm
All
just
right.
messing with you.
No, that's fine. All right, go ahead. Give me the next one. I'm going to tell you why it's crazy. What's the next one?
Nico Imaliava not throwing the ball downfield enough.
That's crazy.
Okay. You got one more opportunity because I'm big picturing this thing. The biggest problem is
Receivers not getting separation.
That's crazy.
okay. All of those fall under my argument that it's lack of splash plays. It's lack of explosive plays against a quality opponent. How many explosive plays has Tennessee had outside of Chattanooga and Kent State? When the game was really in question, you had the Will Brooks interception for 80-some yards that we all said, oh, man, NC State's done. If you remember, it was 10-3, and NC State was driving at that point. That splash play, explosive play, took away everything that the Wolfpack had hoped for. You had one decently long run by Dylan Sampson against Arkansas last week, and you had the long pass to Dante Thornton as well. But that was kind of a chuck, and the run by Sampson was not a touchdown. So, Caleb, I think it's the lack of explosive plays, and they occurred in a couple of different fashions. One, what you're talking about, the receivers aren't getting as open, although I've been told different things. I've been told by some they were open downfield, others they weren't. I think there's a difference of opinion there. Now, the other thing is Tennessee's defense is not allowed to play vertical. Why? Because they don't have the lead. So it is a complete lack of explosive plays. And what made this offense and entire team so exciting? And I don't know if Tennessee is playing hesitant at times, i.e. Nico, or if perhaps the simplification of the defense has Tennessee losing some battles one-on-one as they're not twisting and stunning as often on the defensive front. But that's the problem. It's seemingly obvious, but when you make a play like that, it completely flips momentum. And those used to be a dime a dozen, Caleb, especially in 2022, but even last year. So how do you fix that, Caleb? Now we'll get to your more detailed reasons that aren't crazy. They just weren't what I was going for.
Okay. I have a way to fix it, but I don't know if they're capable. Arkansas was the third time dating back to last November that we heard a coach threw a completely new defensive look against Tennessee that they hadn't seen from them on film. Oklahoma did it, according to all sources. And you talk about how Missouri did it, and Tennessee just got draxed by Missouri because of it last year. Coaches are talking. I have a theory, Dave, that coaches have, and this actually used to be a thing with John Chavis back in the day. This started to be a thing in the mid-2000s where coaches realized if you throw a different look at John Chavis from what he's prepared for, he is a deer in headlights, and he won't know how to stop it in the game because he can't make in-game adjustments. That is starting to be a thought process with how it relates to Josh Heupel, that he just can't adjust to new defensive looks in games. And I'm starting to wonder, Dave, if the problem is just that lack of in-game adjustments, because I think the book on Josh Heupel on the offense, and I wonder if this is throw a totally different look at him that he hasn't been used to seeing all week.
Okay. I want to throw two things at, and Derek made a great comment. There's no passing, or there's no crossing routes, no digs, no slants, that sort of thing. So how much of that is Alex Golesh not being a part, which I said that's not a factor last year. This is Josh Heupel's offense. And part two, Caleb, is how much of this, if other coaches are talking, and have you seen the Connor Stallions documentary yet?
No, I still haven't seen it.
Okay, when you get a chance, I mean, there's a whole sub-genre of football that in 25 years I didn't know about, and that's these goofballs get on the phone on Sundays and they have conference calls and they share signals. I never knew that happened. I mean, to me, it was always you against the world on a team, right? But that happens. Okay, so I'm going to make this argument that Josh Heupel running up the score against Missouri in 2022, that Josh Heupel kicking extra points when you're up kicking onside kicks when you're up 35-0 does not help those that might be willing to share information. Your thoughts on those two topics, is maybe some of this is Josh Heupel's fault, brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All right, so more Golesh or Josh Heupel's dug his own grave by rubbing people's noses in it?
I think between the two would be Josh Heupel. More Golesh. And I can't believe I'm saying that either, but we have too much of a sample size now. And it's twofold. You know, one of the things that leads me to say that, Dave, is that we talked about this last year when Joey Halsey was hired. It was a red flag that for so long he had been an assistant. It took Josh Heupel forever to move him to an on-field assistant coach. So long, in fact, that Joey Halsey actually left coaching for a minute and went to the private sector for a little while and then came back. It almost feels like Josh Heupel, because Halsey had been with him for so loyalty, decided to promote him to offensive coordinator in 2021, but didn't really think he could do the job. Because otherwise, why didn't you do it beforehand? He's been with you for 15 years and you never promoted him to a coordinator position before that. That leads me to believe, Dave, that Josh Heupel doesn't think Joey Halzle's that good at this job, but just gave him the job anyway because he thought the offense and the talent was fine, and he felt he could just throw him a bone. It's the same thing you say with Brent Venables when you talk about it's always a red flag when someone's an assistant for that long and never gets a head coaching job. People talk, somebody knows something. That red flag was there with me with Joey Halzle, and for a while I thought, it doesn't matter. It's Josh Heupel's offense. Maybe it's not. Alex Golesh is doing very well at USF. Jeff Lebby is in his first year as a head coach at Mississippi State. Both of those coaches were huge factors to helping Josh Heupel when he was at UCF and Tennessee. And not that Josh Heupel's offense isn't valuable, not that Josh Heupel isn't smart, but maybe it was. And I'm starting to think this, Dave. What if this is the case? Maybe the offensive coordinator was the guy he needed to help him with the in-game adjustments when a defense throws a new look. And Joey Halzle's not able to do that.
Fair. I think that with Golesh, we've learned that fresh ideas are not nearly as much a part of the chemistry that's going on right now, right? I mean, the Princeton fan in and around on the goal line, all that they did with Princeton fan. I mean, in retrospect, that looks like it has the fingerprints of Golesh all over it. And what I was told more specifically, according to a source that I know, is it was more about game planning. So Josh Heupel likes to put these plays together early on, Caleb, and be it a script or a loose outline of what he wants to do. What's he done previous to 2023 and sometimes in that season as well, and at times this year? He's gone out and gotten a huge lead. And that changes the way completely everything is played. And without that, Tennessee is a way different football team. I mean, there's just another team with a pretty good offense, which is not where you want to be.
No, not at all. And, it's funny you bring that up because it's a part of the Tennessee design is to get a big lead and then unleash the pass rush of James Pierce. That didn't weird, but part of that is the offense being able to maintain what they're doing. I mean, let's be honest, Dave. I want to give you guys something full disclosure. You guys can blame me for Tennessee's loss to Arkansas last Saturday. When Dylan Sampson scored that second touchdown and Tennessee went up 14-3, I was sure Tennessee was winning, weren't you? I was already writing my columns. I'm like, there's no way Arkansas is coming back from this.
Yes.
I actually had a column. I'll just tell you guys this. I had one laughing at Sam Pittman for Sam Pittman saying, "I'd rather be us than them" right now at his halftime interview. Because I'm like, why would you say that when you're up 3-0 and you've massively outplayed the other team and you should be up 17-0?
I was going to play off that as well. I was also going to play off how it feels like 98 more than ever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That column will never see the light of day.
Guys, if you cover sports, you don't realize how many great columns people like Dave, me, and John Adams write that never see the light of day because the actual game itself changes. That's the saddest part about being a sports reporter.
Well, that's true, but there's some clunkers in there too. There's never a clunker at Peak IV Hydration, South Knoxville and Sevierville, a wide range of IV treatments designed to help you feel your best, whether you're recovering from illness, prepping for a big event, or maybe you had a fun night. Over 100 5-star reviews. And the cool thing, if we can drop that link in there, is you can order online, peakivhydration.com. You can order these patches, and they'll do the trick for you. They are absolutely fantastic. So Ollie Lane will join us a little bit later in the program. But first, I would like to get to this day in Tennessee sports history, as there's no question about it. Caleb has been throwing hot heat recently with this day in Tennessee sports history. It's a little bit easier, isn't it, Caleb? When
games are happening? Yes.
Yes, because they play football at the same time every year. So there were times in June and July where this day in Tennessee sports history wasn't grand, but it wasn't Caleb's fault. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, it's not my fault at all. I take no responsibility.
Good.
This is the 27-year anniversary of the Give the Ball to Jamal game when he went for over 200 against his home state in Georgia. And Tennessee beat Georgia 38-13 that day. That win at the time was a throwaway win because it seemed like Florida was a lock to win the East. But Dave, you want to know what was the most important thing about that day? It wasn't Tennessee's win. You want to know what it was? 97?
About that in particular day, I think it would have been the fact that Tennessee's fans had a total lack in of faith in Tennessee's coaching staff, because at the same time they were playing Leonard Little, weren't they, at middle linebacker? Or was that the year before? And then
that was that year. Yeah.
Okay. And they weren't playing Jamal Lewis. So I believe as of that day, because I was like, oh my Lord, that's a bull in a china shop. I mean, I still remember seeing him run for the first time. So I think the significance of that day was Tennessee's fans suddenly had a lack of faith in their coaching staff.
No, the significance of that game, more than anything, was that after Tennessee beat Georgia, later that afternoon, LSU upset Florida in Baton Rouge, and it was Florida's first conference loss since 1994 at the time in 3 years, and it breathed life into Tennessee again for the Peyton Manning senior season, because when that loss happened, it said all of a sudden, oh, we could go to Atlanta. We could make it to the SEC championship game. Totally revitalized the football team, because that day was the day Jamal Lewis emerged and that Florida lost. And so the 97 team had life. And of course, Georgia later in that year beat the brakes off Florida. And Tennessee went to Atlanta to beat Auburn for the SEC title. See, when that happened in 94, when Auburn lost, or when Florida lost their SEC games, Tennessee was already out of the running because they had started so bad. Like they were like 1-3, so they weren't going anywhere. This was the first time where Tennessee was in the running for the SEC championship and Florida actually lost. So they knew they had a chance.
Along those lines, how different would Peyton Manning's legacy have been if he didn't win that SEC title? I mean, the knock against him now is obviously you never beat Florida. And that's one that he doesn't like. But there are a lot of players who didn't beat a particular team in their career and still had legacy top careers. But if he doesn't win that SEC championship, I know it wasn't a natty, but how significant do you think that was to his legacy?
Oh, I think it was huge for his legacy. I think that you could make the argument that's what he came back for, honestly. Because during that time, guys, remember, for our younger audience, the national title was like a bonus on top of your goal. That's like, you know what the national title was like, Dave, in the 90s? It was like, you ever follow your high school football team? Your goal is to win the state championship. If you finish number one in the nation, that's like a little bit of a cherry on top, but the real focus is winning the state championship. In the 90s, your focus was winning the SEC. That's what you cared about.
Because you had to have a little bit of luck. And because Tennessee was remarkably close to not making the national championship game in 1998. Would that have meant that was any less of a team? No. But it could have happened.
You know what's also crazy about the 98 team is if Florida beats Florida State, Tennessee probably plays Florida in a rematch for the national title that year.
Oh, I know.
And another crazy stat, but one of the most underrated stats, what nobody knows. We had him on last week. I love Billy Ratliff. Great dude. The Clint Sterner stumble and fumble is one of the most overrated plays in Tennessee history for this reason. And I don't mean overrated that it wasn't impressive. What Billy Ratliff did was impressive. Dave, it had no impact on Tennessee going to the national title game that year. None.
Oh, I don't believe that. You made reference to that previously.
Let's play a what-if game. What if Arkansas wins that game? Tennessee finishes 10-1. Then they get a rematch with Arkansas in the SEC title game. Dave, do you think they're losing to Arkansas twice? Do you think that team would let Arkansas beat them again?
Okay. Listen, I'm not going to go back and tell you if Tennessee hadn't have beaten Arkansas that they don't make the national championship.
They make it still.
Okay. That sounds a little bit crazy to me.
But no, the BCS formula actually broke this down. They would have been number 2. And they still might have actually been number 1. They actually still might have been number 1 because they would have had a tougher schedule strength than Florida State by having played Arkansas again.
I'll tell you what we need. We need a formula again. We don't need the television committee, the television show, college football playoff committee. That's what bugs me. Let's get Ollie Lane in here. Ollie, give us 2 minutes. We can pay the bills. Again, support our sponsors. That's why we're here. We love our advertisers, and they're all vetted by us. And we've either done business with them or would if we needed their services, which I oftentimes do. I specifically speak to our friends at City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. They'll bring you the Vol report with Cooper Mays a little bit later today. So be sure you have those notifications on. But this guy coming up, he's just going to bump Cooper right off the channel. It's Ollie Lane. Stay tuned. Off the Hook Sports.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life made better.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, $24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, $29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, $26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, we'll get to Ollie Lane here in just a second. And that's always fun because he gives us some insight into the Vols. His appearance will be brought to you in part by our fantastic friends at the Hemp House. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to hemphousechat.com, hemphousechat.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. Let's bring him in here. Ollie Lane is the man. Ollie, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, guys. Bear with me a little bit today. Been having some Wi-Fi issues, so trying to make sure everything's connected using a hotspot, so it's not always the greatest, but we're here, so.
Trust me, I understand. I dealt with that this morning, as Caleb knows, because I was calling him, asking for help at like 7:30 a.m. All right, so Ollie, I want to go backwards for just a little bit, and then ultimately I want to talk Tennessee, Florida. But I haven't had a chance to speak to you on or off the show. So just your thoughts of what happened at Arkansas and what you draw from that, from a positive or negative sort of connotation moving forward this year.
Oh,
I think Ollie may be frozen. We have Ollie. Let's see if I can bring Ollie back up. Oh, looks like we lost. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Ollie, what you might be able to do is try it just on your phone. If you can try it just on your phone, that might work. So we'll visit with Ollie here in just a second. Hang tight with us. Hit the like button if you want Ollie on. That's the key. Enough likes and Ollie gets on the program. So Tennessee, Florida, I would like to reset the poll question if you don't mind. Is there a curse in the Tennessee-Florida series? Because you go back over the years, and this might surprise some people. Did you know that Tennessee was 8-4 against Steve Spurrier when he was at Florida? I'm sorry, 4-8. Steve Spurrier was 8-4 against Tennessee while at Florida. I'm not counting the South Carolina years. That's respectable. It seemed like that series went on for like 30 years, didn't it? Because it was played in September and it would determine who would be in the SEC championship game because of the East. But Caleb, it to me was surprising that Tennessee did win a third of those games. But now you look back at history, and it's like 15 of 17 and 7 of the last 8 Tennessee has lost. If there's not a curse, I don't know what to tell you, because it sure feels like there is a curse. As we're going to try to pull Ollie Lane up here. But what's our poll question now?
All right, and you guys can blame either one. So I go, is there a curse in the Tennessee-Florida series? Yes, losses don't make sense. No, just bad coaching. Because there has been a history of Tennessee being, not with Josh Heupel, but before that, the coach on the other sideline was, can we say, much superior most of the time in game planning.
Do you know why I go with curse, Caleb? I go with curse because of this, how Tennessee almost lost it in 2022 despite manhandling the Gators for the most part. And then suddenly it got close and they were a Hail Mary away. Even though Tennessee won that game, it felt like there was something going on in the back of Tennessee's players' minds. Like,
say which game again?
2022.
Okay. All right.
When they had Anthony Richardson had the Hail Mary for
I know which one.
That, I mean, to me, that felt more like a curse game than any of the others, because I didn't even feel like Florida should have been in the game.
You know, it's fun. You are right. And you covered a game just like that, though. The 2001 game was just like that. If you go back and look at that 2001 game, guys, Tennessee dominated Florida in that game. I mean, Travis Stevens rushes for over 220 yards. Florida can't buy a yard on the ground. Rex Grossman is sacked 4 times. Spurrier gets desperate, throws it 50 times. I mean, just everything about that game, Tennessee outplays them. And somehow the final score ends up 34-32. And, I mean, that is true. I still think it's coaching and psychological. And that Florida team did have a top 5 draft pick in Anthony Richardson. So, and Tennessee did have a very questionable secondary. So you could see how a comeback was possible during that time. But I understand your point with the losses that don't make sense. While we're waiting on Ollie, do we want to get to the most unlikely losses Tennessee's ever suffered in this series?
Yeah, and I want to get your thoughts. What are your most painful memories of the Florida series? And then we'll get to what are your most positive memories as well. But your most painful memories of the Florida series, I would have to say this from a Tennessee fan's perspective. And, I'm a journalist, I'm objective. But to me, it was by far the Jabbar Gaffney catch, no catch, because that was a rule that ended up being changed, that you had to show some sort of control with the football. And I guess technically by the letter of the law and the rule, it was correct. But good gravy, if that's a catch, then my son never dropped a football when I was throwing it at him, because I hit him every time. And he may have had it for an ultra minute split second, but he dropped a lot of them, as he's not the clan isn't blessed with great hand-eye coordination, but except for me. But Caleb, yeah, that to me was by far the most painful ones. All right, so let me ask you, most painful losses to Florida, and then we'll go to the most positive losses for Florida. Nobody's going to top mine as I'll go full Uncle Dave mode. What do you think are the 3 or 4 most painful losses to Florida?
All right, so I got a few. And by the way, all of these are due to questionable coaching. 3 of the 4 I'm going to name are masterpieces and just stupidity on the in coaching. Just like no brain cells whatsoever from the coaches on the sidelines, okay? And so I'm going to start. The first one I'm not going to say that about. But you just brought up the 2001, the Jabbar Gaffney one. Dave, we can talk about the Jabbar Gaffney play all day. Tennessee's defense let Florida go 91 yards on that final drive.
Great.
And John Chavis played a soft zone prevent after blitzing Jesse Palmer all game long. I don't know why he decided to do that in that moment. It was...
For those on our audio platforms, I'm shaking my head vociferously.
Yes, it was. I could not for the life of me figure out why he decided to go soft zone there. It's so stupid when coaches do that. But before that, the drive previously, Tennessee had a chance to put Florida away. Do you remember this, Dave? It was 3rd and 1. You have Travis Henry, known as Cheese, a block of cheese because you can't tackle him. And Randy Sanders is, let's call a toss play. They won't be expecting that after your toss attempt against Florida the year before failed. And why not just give it to Travis Henry straight up the gut? and make Florida try to tackle him for.
Well, that reminds me of that would have been 99 when they ran the toss play to Jamal on 4th and 1. That was the game in which T was supposedly shaking his hands. Do you remember that?
Oh, where they had timed the snap count. Alex Brown had figured out the snap count because of how he moved his hands, right?
Yeah, like right before they would snap, he would kind of shake his hands. But really, the play that stands out to me, I mean, that's great that they got an advantage. I mean, it happens more than you know in those sorts of situations. But the fact that they ran a toss sweep to Jamal Lewis with that offensive line instead of just run it in the A or B gap, to me was befuddling.
I'm going to be fair on that one. It was 4th and 3. Not 4th and 1, and they had just gotten stopped on a run up the middle of the previous play, 3rd and 3. The reason they called if you go back and look at the replay, the toss was there. Jamal Lewis tried to cut to the inside just to get the first down. If he stays running to the outside, Dave, he's got a touchdown because Florida closed the gaps on the inside part. So the play was there. Jamal Lewis just made the wrong read on it.
I agree, and I'm not saying this in just with hindsight being 2020, I didn't like the play call. If you thought the down and distance wasn't in your favor, then you need to throw the ball.
I agree.
Yeah. If you would have asked me the worst play they could have called at that point, other than a Statue of Liberty, I would have said a toss sweep.
Actually, Statue of Liberty would have worked there. But the point being, yes, you are right. That 99 game, though, again, Tennessee would have been lucky to win that game. They were down 23-7. Once again, Florida had 5 turnovers. They just held on. So I don't hold that one against them as much. But like the 2001, they should have won. They also had 3 times inside the 1-yard line where they settled for field goals, and Fulmer didn't go for the throw. So the 2001 was bad. I would offer this one up really quick before you get to more recent ones. Peyton Manning's last loss. He comes back for his senior year, and you think that Tennessee is going to beat Florida finally. And what happens? They go out there and they're down 34-0 before you can even blink. No, that's 96 when they're down 35-0. Okay, that's before Peyton Manning's senior year.
Okay, so take me to 97.
97 is the Tony George pick 6 game where they're at Florida. And basically, Tennessee's offensive line put together the worst performance in the history of offensive lines that day, where Peyton Manning had less than 2 seconds to get rid of the ball. So
I'm just going to put it this way: you can go with 96 or 97 loss to Florida because of Peyton. All right. Yeah. So what else have we got? We got Jabbar Gaffney, no catch. We've had a couple of people that have chimed in there, continue to do so, as Caleb has a couple as well.
All right, so that's the one of the 4 most unlikely. The Mannings, none of those losses were unlikely because Florida did just kind of dominate those games. But there's 3 other unlikely losses that all happened under Butch Jones because Butch Jones should have gone 4-1 against Florida and won 4 straight, but he lost 3 of those 4 because he's Butch Jones.
Give me your top 2 out of those, and then we'll get to the third one.
All right, my top 2. 2015. Dave, if you ever want to just go watch a masterpiece of coaching failures, go watch Butch Jones versus Jim McElwain in 2015. There's a few things that happened in that game. So late in the fourth quarter, Dave, Jalen Hurd takes a draw and runs it into the end zone for a touchdown to put Tennessee up 26-14. You're Tennessee, you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to beat Florida. Butch Jones doesn't go for 2. It's 26-14 in the fourth quarter. You go for 2, right? To get a 2-touchdown lead. Can you not count to 14?
I don't chase points in the first half, so I'm going to back him.
This is the fourth quarter. Fourth quarter.
That's absurd.
Okay. Then Florida, on the next drive, converts 4 fourth downs to score, make it 27-21. Butch Jones sits on the lead, runs it 3 times, punts it. Florida converts a 5th fourth down on 4th and 15, goes for a touchdown. They win 20-27. Another masterpiece of coaching failure in that game. The most famous part of that game, Dave. Tennessee was up 20-7 in the third quarter. Jim McElwain on 4th down decided to kick a 50-yard field goal. And you're going to love this. Butch Jones, if you're Butch Jones and you're up 20-7 and your opponent's kicking a 50-yard field goal, you take the win, right? You're like, yes, we're going to get the ball back. Butch Jones freaked out because he didn't have his field goal block team out there, so he burned a timeout. And
so what year was that again?
2015. Wait, I'm not done. Because he burns the timeout, I kid you not, Jim McElwain comes out of the timeout, changes his mind, decides to go for it, gets it, Florida scores on that drive. If Butch Jones doesn't burn that timeout and just say base 4-3 defense, Florida kicks a field goal and you got the ball up 20-10. That's I can't get over how just massive coaching malpractice that was.
Okay, give me your second one. Then we're going to try to loop in Ollie Lane here, who appears to be walking around with a phone. So he's doing his best, and we appreciate y'all. Give me that last one.
All right, that last one, 2017, 2 years later, and this was when I was off the Butch train. Butch Jones, Tennessee doesn't have enough defensive backs because they're banged up. So Florida beats them on a Hail Mary because Butch Jones refuses to just put an extra receiver in to like guard the deep ball. And he says, we don't have a dime package. In that game, John Kelly was averaging over 6 yards a carry, and Tennessee did not run it one time when they got inside the 10-yard line. They threw it 7 times when they were inside the 10-yard line, and all of them were incomplete passes. One of those ended up in an interception. The other one ended up in them getting a field goal. It was just a masterpiece of coaching stupidity.
Okay, we'll have the best wins coming up. It's on the poll question. What is the most painful loss to Florida? Jabbar Gaffney, no catch, 96 or 97, Peyton's final years. 2015, Butch not going for 2. 2017, Butch giving up the Hail Mary. Now, we will get to the positive memories that you have at the Tennessee-Florida game. We bring in Ollie Lane now, who Ollie's outside finding a connection. I love it.
Yeah, I think I got to finally get something, so we're here.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you. So I don't want to linger on something that's 6 days old, but tell me your takeaways from the Arkansas game and why things can get better.
Yeah. I mean, just looking back at it, obviously was not the best performance offensively for us. You know, I felt that the defense for the most part played a solid and complete game. Obviously not the outcome that they wanted, but I mean, to only hold an SEC opponent to 19 points on the road is still a pretty big accomplishment for that defense. I think offensively, it's just finding a scheme that's going to work for them consistently against this same front. I mean, this front's not nothing new. It's something that a lot of teams, especially these teams that somewhat are quote unquote down on their luck and need to pull out all the stops, that's something that they're going to is that 3-2-6 or the 3-3 stack, something like that. And it gets us a little bit off kilter on what we want to do. And then, I mean, just offensively, when you're shooting yourself in the foot with penalties and you start behind the chains every single drive, you can't get anything done because, I mean, to establish tempo and get tempo going for this offense, it's all relying on getting that first down. And I felt like that was half of the battle, was just getting one first down to get a drive rolling. It never seemed to be that they were all in unison trying to get a collective mission done. It seemed like there was just a bunch of bit and broken pieces across the offense, and none of it was really fitting together.
Okay, the one last question about last week. Dylan Sampson said that Tennessee was perhaps lackadaisical in the bye week. Now, that's a buzzword for me as a reporter.
Yeah.
When you hear that, I mean, is that like or is that it happens?
Yeah, I mean, it happens, especially when you look at this experienced and old team that we have for some of those guys. I mean, in a bye week, there's no sense of beating them up and getting them banged up and everything in practice. So I think, if anything, that's probably what he meant by that, was that they just kind of took the edge off just a little bit in practice, try to save some bodies. And I mean, it's going to happen throughout a season. Every team does it to try to save some of their guys for when it actually matters. And I mean, the practice reps and stuff is huge, but you don't want to blow it all out on practice when the game's obviously way more important.
Interesting. All right, Caleb.
Ollie, I know you more often played on the interior, so and it wasn't their fault what happened over the weekend, but you are an offensive lineman in general. How much were you pulling your hair out with the way John Campbell Jr. and Lance Hurd played on Saturday? And I know John Campbell's your teammate, so I know you're going to be a little nice, but it's what really went wrong with them in that game? Because that was just a really rough performance for them.
Yeah, looking back at it, it was definitely frustrating. And, I mean, me personally, I know John, and I know he's frustrated with the performance that he put out. But, at the end of the day, it looks like that they've lost what the clear rule number one is, especially playing tackle on an island. You cannot get beat inside. If you look at statistics across NFL, college football, the quickest way, the most statistical way that sacks happen is getting beat inside. Quick C to B or interior B to A. I mean, when you're just giving up that inside, it's cutting the pocket protection short and not allowing Nico to really step around and move anywhere. However, if you get him, force him to go upfield and run the hoop, that'll give Nico at least an opportunity to step up, especially with how solid the interiors played for the most part. They've been setting a good depth for that pocket to allow Nico to step up a little bit, but he can't step up when someone's right in front of him because the tackle got beat inside. I think what they need to eventually do is just look at our tackle situation and just make a decision. Is John Campbell at the state that he is at health-wise, is he going to perform better than Dane Davis? And I think that's something that they have to look at and, like, do we need to start using – they're already using Dane a ton, but maybe it becomes a situation where Dane's playing more of the handful of snaps than John is, but John's coming in for some of those big drives or something. You know, it's hard to cover up poor offensive play, especially with the tackle position being the highlighted spot. But I think they can try to overcome some of it by maybe keeping the tight ends in protection to help chip block every now and then, and just getting the running backs on the same schedule as us to understand who they're truly covering, where they need to have their eyes at.
Okay, I feel pretty smart here because I had the same suggestion about Dane Davis earlier in the week. And my argument was more towards the Lance Hurd side because he may end up being an explosive athlete, but to me right now, he just looks like a big body. And that's what I'm seeing. You tell me if I'm wrong. But I would argue that Dane Davis, if he could just focus on one position and not be the utility guy across the board, could be a very solid player in the SEC. What do you make of that statement?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the fact of the matter is Dane Davis is going to go in there and give you his 100% all every single play. Like, there's not a single issue that I have with Dane that's effort or want to wise. You know, obviously his talent, just the God-given talent that he has isn't where some of the other talented tackles are in the league, but he's a guy that's going to come in, give you dependable time and put everything that he's got into it. And that's something that you can respect. And, you know, at the end of the day, I know that Dane can perform where he needs to, especially like you said, if you give him just one position to focus on, he's going to do everything he can to prepare for that one position. I mean, he's already doing it for 3 positions now, pretty much all 5. So, I mean, there's nothing that tells me that if he just had that one position to focus on that he wouldn't be able to do great in it.
I agree. And I wonder if that move will be made this weekend. I feel like Ollie may have given us a little bit of a tip there. But Caleb, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, so Ollie, talking about that, you talked about letting people get inside, and that seemed like more of an issue. Do you think there is a we had Mike Stoll on earlier in the week, and he said that he talked about technique and things like that, but he also said that the foot quickness just doesn't seem to be there sometimes. Is that a concern to you when you watch the tackles play at all, or do you think it's more just –
Yeah, especially, and, I don't want to talk bad, but, watching the Arkansas game, watching Lance Hurd, he is a very slow-moving person. There doesn't seem to be that quick twitch fiber in him, and you need that, especially in a quick twitch offense. But, I mean, like, there was occasional times, especially on his pulls, it was very highlighted that he's getting around there slow, and it seemed to especially be holding up DeSamp and Bishop a couple times trying to hit a hole. And I think even on one play, he forgot to pulled late, and just the whole play was a bust anyway. I think, there's a lot of things you can do to speed him up. But, I mean, someone's got to light that fire under his feet and just get him moving. You have to be able to move, especially with the talent that some of these edge rushers have in the SEC. I mean, they're going to beat them on speed, and that's all they need. They'll never have to go to a second or third move if they're running right by them. So they're going to have to find a way to where it can click in his mind that, hey, my feet need to be moving at about 100% faster than they are right now.
So let me ask you this, and as you can see, Ollie outside because of internet connections, he very well could be close to the UPS store Hardin Valley, here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated conveniently at 10629 Hardin Valley Road. See, I did that, Ollie? That was pretty smooth, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I rarely question 2 things, effort and injury, because I don't know what kind of pain a person's having, A. And then B, I don't question effort, especially with somebody new, because sometimes the lack of understanding for what you're supposed to do, I believe in every sport, can cause you to play slow. So what are the chances? I mean, I don't know if you've seen Lance work out, but what are the chances that he was slow-footed just because upstairs he wasn't still completely sure what to do? And I want to remind everybody, he missed a lot of preseason camp and has missed a lot of in-season practices as well because of that ankle. I mean, is that a realistic possibility?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a huge factor into it. I mean, when you're not all mentally there into what the game plan is, you're now overthinking everything. And when you get into that spot of overthinking, now you're micromanaging all your steps. You're thinking it through way too much when instead, like, it's just, all right, I got to block that guy, go. But now you're thinking, oh, I got to block this guy. I got to use this technique. I got to take these steps. And so when you get too critical into the details of it because you don't know it as secondhand knowledge, that's when you start to see that mental process slows down and you're not even thinking about it. But as your mental process slows, it's going to slow the rest of your emotions down completely. And I think that's probably where he's having some of those issues. I think you kind of hit it right on the spot with that, because I mean, it takes this offense. No, it's not overly the top complicated to learn, but at the same time, there's a lot of moving pieces in it that you can get caught up, especially with how they're wanting to use the tackles now, more of the open the pool and different schemes that they're trying to get, especially going against a lot of these 3-3 fronts. It's important for the tackles to know exactly what they're going to do and to be comfortable out there, to play free and loose. Because when you start getting into the details about how I'm doing something, you're not worried about what extra efforts and stuff I can put into the play. You're just worried about getting your number one job done.
Hey, Caleb, let me jump in here real quick. So you said how they're using their tackles now. Is Tennessee, and this is stuff you see that we don't see, is Tennessee using its tackles significantly different than they did last year before?
More in the sense of, we started it a lot more last year, and you can just see it carrying over with more of like the tackle pulls being a regular piece of our play scheme. Because, I mean, you'll see it a lot more often, especially on just our inside zone plays, either John or Lance are pulling, depending on the side of the run. And we started doing a lot of that last year and found success. And now, from what I've seen, it's become just a regular piece of this offense this year.
Wow. Go ahead, Caleb. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. Ollie, this is kind of some interesting stuff I wanted to talk about, because Dave and I have kind of had a bit of a debate over, how quickly, how long it takes sometimes people to figure things out in this offense just in general, because, I mean, we've seen like players like Andre Turek, who I think struggled a lot last year, is looking much better this year. Do you think the problem is not that the offense is complicated, but sometimes rather than play fast, people try to think too much their first year in the offense because things are not as second nature?
Yeah, I would agree to that. I mean, even our first year in the offense back in 21, there was some slow moving parts and stuff like that, just trying to learn everything. And especially when it gets to some heated situations, the play calls get a little bit more complicated. The center's communication gets a little bit more complicated. But I think especially you can see it in guys like Andre after a year in the offense. They're a lot more comfortable. They know what they need to do. And I mean, especially for me, after that 21 season going into 22, I felt like I knew the offense at that point and could just go out and play. Like, you call a play and the footwork's secondhand. I know where I'm going and all of this. So, I mean, I think just building that experience and that time with running the plays, knowing the scheme, knowing what the coaches are wanting from you helps a ton. And you can see it in the guys that have been around through this offense. They're only getting more and more better and faster through their movements with it.
All right, great stuff. That was really insightful, a lot of that. And we're going to hash it out. We don't want you to get run over by a car out there in the parking lot. So if you can, just go ahead and last thing, keys to the game. And if you want to throw out a prediction, how you see this game shaking out for the Vols.
Yeah, no, obviously keys to the game is just come out and have that fire that you left in Oklahoma, bring it back from minus the week last week. And then just honestly, I think for Nico and them, just get comfortable, find a rhythm that works for you, and just take what the defense is going to give you. Defensively, I think just keep bringing the pressure, pushing all gas. Kind of, if you could choke out their offense, I think they're going to have a lot of success. It's just finding the open options offensively to get scores on the board. But I think in looking at it, I'm going to take the Vols 28-17. 17 is probably a little too much for Florida, honestly. But just with how this offense is playing, I want to see us get on a roll. And I think if we can get on a roll, we could probably shut them out a little bit quicker than that.
I like it. Ollie, great stuff. Keep rocking the goatee, because when you get my age, it's white, and it's not nearly as good looking.
Yeah.
I'm just going to warn you.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
Hey, we appreciate you. Thanks for sticking with it, man. I know it's a Wi-Fi was crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
All
Yeah, I mean, mine's completely white now, Caleb. So that's why I don't grow mine out. I shave before every show. Wow, that's a lot to unpack, and we're going to do it right now. Could there be a change up? I don't think Ollie just threw that out there. Okay. I mean, and I said it earlier this week, and I was throwing it out there. That was not from a source. I mean, I hadn't even had a chance to talk to a source when I said Dane Davis should be a starter and they should change things up earlier this week, because they hadn't even practiced yet. So I obviously hadn't talked to a source that they may do that, but that certainly brings that into the question. I mean, to me, that's very insightful. And Caleb, we're going to set the poll question to that. And to reset the poll question, what is the most painful loss to Florida? 96 or 97, Peyton's final years. I cheated because there's 2 on there. Now, when it comes to offensive tackle, Vols should stay on course, shake it up. All right. I want to ask you that question, Caleb, brought to you by Work Trucks, worktrucksllc.com. Work Trucks, all about trucks. Trucks are actually available. Trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. Look at those Work Trucks available online. Man, those trucks don't break down, and they have all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting, all about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. Quick and easy when you work with Work Trucks. Cargo vans, utility body trucks with an app-hide work bodies installed. Pickup trucks of all sizes, anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Trucks supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, Work Trucks with an X. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville and downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go to worktruckswithanxllc.com. worktruckswithanxllc.com. Why risk chancing your future in business on a wrong piece of equipment that burns your time? worktruckswithanxllc.com. They will find the perfect truck, outfit it, and make sure it fits your needs to a T. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. Does Tennessee need another Work Trucks at offensive tackle? Caleb, do they need to replace either John Campbell Jr., who Ollie hinted at because he's got that continued burst of sack that makes it difficult for him to get through games, or, now he didn't suggest this, I did, replacing Lance Hurd, who Ollie said is slow-footed, which I've said before, may not have that fast twitch fiber, or maybe he's just unsure. Caleb, it's not as easy as just plug and play. If they were to do something like this mid-season, it could undermine what Hurd is meant to be. It could change up the chemistry. It seems simple, but this is not a video game. This would be a monstrous move. Not the same thing as changing quarterbacks like Tennessee seemingly did every other game in 2005. But it'd be a big deal, Caleb.
It'd be a huge deal. But someone brought this up earlier in the week on our message board, because we have the smartest listeners in all of college football. And I didn't think about it until I looked it up. Larry Johnson hasn't surrendered a pressure this year when he's been in the game.
Listen, I mean, that's a whole different argument. Do you replace both of them? I mean, I think that, and we talked to, I mean, this is all on the record. We talked to, Cooper Mays, about Larry Johnson. And he said, man, when he gets his mitts on you, he's got you. That's what you want to hear about an offensive tackle.
I want to reroute on something, and maybe this is a topic that we didn't plan on doing, but we need to talk about it because I'm going to ask you this question, Dave. John Campbell and Lance Hurd are transfers.
Mm-hmm.
Is NIL forcing Josh Heupel to start those two at tackle when he'd probably prefer to start Dane Davis and Larry Johnson? Is he getting pressure from maybe an advertiser that has said, I paid Lance Hurd a good bit of money, and I don't know if I would do that again if Lance Hurd's not on the field.
Okay, I don't think so, and here's why. I'm not ruling it out. It's a fun conspiracy theory wormhole to go down. But I believe that could be the case with a guy like Nico and his stature. Let's say Nico was a complete dud. There's so much money on the line. With Lance Hurd, it's $1 million.
That's a lot of money.
Well, now, I agree, but what's he doing for $1 million? I mean, I see Nico on all kinds of commercials. I see Cooper Mays on the Vol Report, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, 50 years in East Tennessee, cityheatandair.com. I see him there. I see him doing things. I don't see Hurd commercials. So I don't think there's any business in Knoxville that their profit margin swings on whether or not Lance Hurd is in the game moving around slow or on the bench moving around slower.
Okay, you're right. I mean, the offensive linemen are never going to be splash enough people to like be worthy of those type of advertisements anyway. So you know what you're getting into from the start when you throw $1 million. But
like, for instance, I made a commitment to both Jacob and Cooper when we did the Vol Report with those guys that they would, if they suffered some sort of injury, which actually happened previous to last year with Coop, that money would still be there for them. And if they wanted to do it, we could continue doing it, which we did with Coop. We didn't center on his injury the entire time, but he gave you insight as to that recovery and that recovery period. But I would think that Hurd has a similar type of deal. He's going to get the money, but at the end of the day, the entire economy in Knoxville benefits from Tennessee winning. So even if one company paid $1 million, which I'm sure it's divvied up to a lot of different people, but if one company paid $1 million, he's not really the face of any company like Cooper is for the Aubrey's commercials, for those in Knoxville, or City Heating and Air Conditioning on the Vol Report. He's not the face of any company. And if he's costing Tennessee games, and there are offensive linemen that played that bad where you start pointing them out, then if you're an advertiser, I want him out of the game. I mean,
yeah, no, that's actually probably true. You're right. That's a good point. That's a very good point. And it's funny. I'm glad you talk about the economy and things like that, because I've always felt. Do you remember?
Nico's way different. Okay, I do want to clarify that. Let's say Nico has a confidence problem because of how he played against Arkansas, because that's what's happening to Bryce Young right now in Carolina. They were so bad for so long that he feels like he has to force everything. So they sat him on the bench. And I know the NFL is a different sort of season, but they're going to bring him back eventually after he sits and watches Andy Dalton for a while, the Red Rifle Ranger or whatever he's called. Whereas you can't do that in college football by the nature of the sport, but you especially couldn't do it given the fact that it would be just a PR nightmare discussing how Tennessee and advertisers have paid upwards of $4 million a year for him, and he hasn't panned out.
Yes. I agree with you on that. It would be absolutely disastrous. I mean, Josh Heupel, the way they branded Nico Iamaleava, you can't do that. I mean, that's a great point. So much is riding on Nico's success. But I mean, this is where the new NIL are the new fathers of players. And for those who don't know history, this is actually one of the reasons, guys, Texas A&M has never, ever been the program it should be with all the resources, because the oil executives there try to micromanage the program, and oil executives are by and large stupid. But
what Caleb's saying is absolutely true. I've known people that have started broadcasting ventures with, it's called the 12th Man Foundation. And they absolutely will make every single promise, and you have to have 15,000 people to say yes, and they're all kind of at the same level Whereas at least Tennessee, there was one prominent guy in Big Jim Haslam.
Exactly. And unlike his son, Big Jim Haslam was smart. And so he actually knew how to stay away. Whereas, so with A&M, and by the way, this for A&M goes back to the 1920s, because A&M as a football program is literally a program that was propped up on oil money, people who struck oil in the 1890s, guys. So when Bear Bryant went there in the 50s, there's actually stories on this where literally he was greeted by like 7 oil executives, all of who played for Texas A&M, and all of whose sons were playing for Texas A&M. And they all came to him off the plane. It was like, so where are you going to play my son? You think he if you put him at fullback, he'll really help you win. And Bear Bryant, literally, to his credit, that's why he did the junction thing to begin with. He said, I don't care what all conference BS you were, and I don't care who your daddy is. And he purposely tried to run off the kids of the boosters. And
all right.
So yeah.
Let's react to the poll question, because I'm a little bit surprised, because I don't think people realize how big of a massive change this would be. Quality Tire Pros, the Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work covered by a nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online. QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. Tell Bo that Off the Hook Sports and Dave Hooker said hello. What's our poll question? Where does it stand?
All right, so the poll question is, when it comes to offensive tackles, Vols should 35% stay on course, 65% shake it up.
Okay. Now, a part of that is you've got to go ahead and say to yourself, if you were to replace Lance Hurd with Dane Davis, that Lance Hurd is a lost cause. Don't expect to get anything out of him the rest of the year, and he's probably going to transfer, right?
I agree. I totally agree.
There's no way you're going to stroke a guy check for $1 million. He's going to come in and get benched by an older guy with less theoretically athletic ability, which is now arguable in my opinion, and him stay around, or him even be engaged for the rest of the season. So you're down essentially what was supposed to be one of your starting offensive linemen.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
How big of a factor would that be in your decision? And I asked the same thing of the message board, because I'm telling you, this would shake things up team chemistry wise. This could explode in your face.
It could, but I don't think it would hurt chemistry, because I will say this: if you think Dane Davis is ready, Dave Cooper Mays, we know him personally. Javonte Spraggins, he's been there for a while. Andre Keurig is doing his job. Do you think those three care if the tackles change? Do you think they care if Larry Johnson?
Well, I said it'll affect team chemistry. I didn't say it hurt team chemistry.
May help team chemistry. I'm just saying.
I'm not arguing.
And do you think if here's the thing: if Lance Hurd cries and pitches a fit and makes a big stink about it, this won't be a Jeremy Banks. Do you think he would really split the locker room, or do you think most people would be like, no? Most people would be like, go sit over there. We got this. We don't need you.
No. Listen, the way to be a great leader in football is not to be like Peyton Manning and say you have to be there for voluntary workouts and he's willing to get in your face and all that stuff. The first thing you have to do to be a great leader is be a great player. I mean, there are not a lot of guys. I mean, Eric Berry wasn't a get in your face player, but I guarantee you that everybody during every practice said, I don't want to be shown up by Eric Berry because he's given 100% all the time.
And this was why Jeremy Banks was able to split the locker room 2 years ago, because Jeremy Banks was the middle linebacker. He called the plays for the whole defense, right? He kind of was the defensive leader to a certain degree. And like the reason, I'm not saying he was a leader, but if Jeremy Banks starts a fight, that's like if your quarterback starts a fight on offense.
He was a leader by default because they didn't have a lot of great players on defense.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why that split the team. If Lance Hurd does not have the cachet to split this team, is that fair to say?
Amen. We continue with that, which that's just awesome, incredible stuff by our good buddy Ollie Lane. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more.
How often do you think when he played hide and seek as a kid, like people messed with him and said, Ollie, Oxenfree? Sorry.
A lot. Hound Dogs of Knoxville champions look good in orange. Go to hdknoxville.com, hdknoxville.com. 2 minutes more on a possible tackle change. Off the Hook Sports. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Varner Ford in Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2018 Ford Mustang convertible, 24,550, 2023 Ford Bronco Sport Big Bend, 29,789, 2022 Ford Escape SEL all-wheel drive, 26,975. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Welcome back to the program. 66% of you think that there needs to be a shakeup at offensive tackle. So I'm going to ask this question. If Tennessee loses to Florida, and we wouldn't know exactly how, whose job should be on the line, Caleb? And that could be a starting job. That could be a coach that, sure, he's still in the staff, and you're not going to escort him out of gate 20, but maybe has less of a role. That's essentially what happened to Chuck Smith when they ran 38,000 defensive tackles onto the field at Tiger Stadium. He lost all of his duties, all of them. They were all handled by Lance Thompson. He was in charge of substituting the defensive line just like he was the linebackers. Usually that falls on the position coach. So I think you have to wonder about Joey Halzle. Now, again, we're not talking about some sort of public firing or anything like that. But whose job should be on the line if the Vols lose to Florida?
Just funny thing for that Chuck Smith thing. I think every Les Miles check from that point on, a cut of it should have been taxed and gone to Chuck Smith because Les Miles was going to be fired on Monday if LSU lost that game with that clock mismanagement. But I would say, okay, let's set it this way. One of the tackles, Joey Halzle.
Okay.
Nico or Josh Heupel.
Well, I mean,
okay, let's talk about Josh Heupel. Glenn Ellerbe. Glenn Ellerbe. We got to start raising some red flags on Glenn Ellerbe with the offensive line.
Okay. I like that. Now, what would your answer be to that question?
Glenn Ellerbe. I think there is a major issue with player development under Glenn Ellerbe right now that I don't think we're talking about enough. And
well, we are. I don't know that everybody is. All right. So I got John Campbell Jr. or Lance Hurd, then offensive line coach Glenn Ellerbe, Joey Halzle.
And Nico.
Okay. It's not Nico.
But you got to throw him in there because people might blame him.
No, he's on there. It's not Nico because it's what is happening in front of him that is so troublesome. It is John Campbell Jr. or Lance Hurd. And I say that knowing that it could have a negative effect on team chemistry. But if Tennessee goes out there and their offensive tackles played like they did against Arkansas, then I'm going to maybe drop Glenn Ellerby a hint that maybe his services are more in need elsewhere. I'm going to drop a hint to Joey Halsley that this isn't working out. Now, that doesn't mean you have a press conference and fire them on the spot on Monday. No, you've still got a lot to play for, even if Tennessee were to lose. But you're right. I think that just to say John Campbell or Lance Hurd is the easy way out because there is, it appears to me and us and Mike Stoll, who played offensive line for Tennessee and was one of the guys that really had to rely on technique more so than physical ability. So he really believes in his craft, and I think he's right up there at the top. So I would have to say this has to go more towards a coach in Halsley or especially Ellerby. Thanks for the super chat, Darth Ball, as that'll go to Caleb Calhoun's 4-month-old son's college savings. He said, I'm not sure if we even have anyone behind Hurd as Campbell that could do any better, nor is Nico's backup any better. So offensive line coach it is. All right. Well, again, I said this earlier in the week, and it was not based off a source. It was based off of just my view of football. I thought that Lance Hurd was heavy-footed and that if Dane Davis focused on one position, he could be as good. Now we have seen my opinion backed up, and I didn't talk to Ollie about this before, but he offered it up, Caleb, that maybe that's the direction to go. And I said this originally, I think even last week, that if Dane Davis is prepared at just one position, I don't think there's a major fall-off.
I actually agree. I think that particularly this day and age, I think technique is more important to playing left tackle, whereas raw talent's more important to playing right tackle. And I think we can agree Dane Davis has been in the program long enough. He probably has technique and his fundamentals down pat. And Larry Johnson probably has the raw talent. So look, guys, we said John Campbell or Lance Hurd. I'm not saying you shouldn't bench both. Now, I think with Lance Hurd, it could just be some issues with his style. I don't think John Campbell is not a good player. He could be banged up. He played a really good defensive end last week, guys. One of the best he's going to face all year.
Well, he has that versus sack issue that keeps flaring up during the game. I'm not completely blaming him. I mean, I think he's doing it on 1.5 legs.
Yeah. And at that point, if he is, then you put Larry Johnson out there. I mean, let him get fully healthy. And I mean, I that's the way I look at it. I think Larry Johnson has proven enough. Now, again, we see things in practice, or we don't see things in practice. They do. We question coaches all the time. That's what we love to do on this show. But there are sometimes decisions that are made based on their understanding of personnel. And maybe Larry Johnson can come in for a couple of plays and play well like he's done. But Josh Heupel seen enough in practice to say, well, he can't do that for 4 quarters the way we expect other tackles to be able to do so. And so that's kind of where we're at. But I mean, I will say, Dave, you covered practice with Philip Fulmer all the time. And I can tell you many Tennessee fans in the background would always be complaining about Fulmer's personnel decisions. And now I look back and you've enlightened me on some things and you're like, you don't understand in practice. That's why they made that decision because of things like that.
I'll give you another one too, just in how football has changed. Elijah Simmons, you would be a first-round draft pick if they had been allowed to move you to the offensive line years ago. And that used to happen under Philip Fulmer's regime all the time. Now it doesn't happen hardly ever. And it's because I think that a lot of these players, they have leverage because of the transfer portal. He get up and say, I'm not going to leave. Now, I know he was here before even the transfer portal, but it just doesn't seem like people are willing to do that nearly as often, Caleb. But I look at Elijah Simmons, and to me, he is a dominant, awesome offensive guard.
Yes, he is. He also is starting to blow up plays in the middle of tackle. He's actually underrated with what he's doing at tackle right now. And
no, I agree. A lot of times those often injured guys, they're more likely to get caught up on defense with guys rolling up on them.
But guard's not a problem for Tennessee anyway.
Oh, I agree. I got way off topic. Ray Varner, local you trust, innovation you can afford. Go to rayvarnerford.com, rayvarnerford.com. Yes, Caleb?
Yeah, I was just going to say that Elijah Simmons I think Tennessee's just going to have to make some personnel changes at tackle, but we really got to start questioning Glenn Ellerbe.
Now, if that's the case, some of that falls under Josh Heupel, because if they have the same problems at offensive tackle, then he hasn't done anything in terms of 12 personnel, or he hasn't done anything in terms of chipping with a running back. I mean, if they're still getting beat at offensive tackle and that cost them the Florida game, some of that's on Heupel.
Oh, absolutely it is. Totally agree.
Our friends at Asia Cafe want to treat you to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from guarded family secrets. 5 locations to choose from. AsiaCafe.org, AsiaCafe.org. We want you to check them out, and also their fantastic coffee, which is unbelievable. 6-1 Brazilian cocoa coffee, energy booster, premix instant white coffee by the Lim Dynasty, who's been around since 1909. That's a long time. They're right there in Knoxville, Tennessee. Asia Cafe. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. We had somebody donate to Caleb's 4-month-old son's college fund, and that was Darth Ball. So here's what I'm going to do to encourage people to give to, by the way, Caleb's promised me that despite his degenerate gambling ways, he would not spend any of that money on gambling. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Darth Ball. I'm going to put my email in here, and you can email me, and you're going to be the winner of our weekly giveaway. All you have to do is be a member of Hooker's Corner if you want to be a part of that. But today I'm giving it to you because we don't have time to set up the spinny button because we got a lot to get to. So are we getting to your picks now on the weekend, Caleb? Is that what we're doing?
We are, and last week doesn't count. No, I actually had an amazing start last week. I was like 8-1, and then the Tennessee Arkansas game happened, screwed me over, and then the Cal Miami game, Cal blowing that 35-10 lead to Miami cost me so much money. I would have made a profit last week, and I ended up just slightly losing money. I finished 8-8, and I was 2-3 on my best bets because of that Cal Miami game. I took Cal straight up.
Who did they play? Who played Miami again?
Cal.
Who?
Cal.
Is it me, or does it sound like Caleb saying cow? Do you have a little bit of your... I've never heard your Southern accent before until right now. The Beef played Miami, is what you're telling me. It's awesome. I've not heard a single or anything like that out of
I had it growing up, and then I did. I really did have it growing up. I went into broadcast journalism and trained myself to get rid of it. Funny
yeah,
enough.
I used to... This is for cell phones. I'd ride around going, right, bike, kite, flight, and people look at me like that. An idiot. But I tell you what, this idiot can see. No contacts, no glasses. Last look, we saved the best for last. Brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and On.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
Go, Caleb, go. What do you got for picks this weekend? I'll tell you whether or not I agree. If I agree with Caleb, and I think he's spending his gambling allotment wisely, I'll say, hey now. If not,
that's crazy.
All right. So there have been a lot of crazy ones for Caleb. And suddenly I have the hiccups on the air.
Yeah, could be another chaos week could be in the works. There are 4 ranked teams that play unranked teams on the road with winning records, and there are 2 more ranked teams that play lower ranked teams on the road. So we're going to start because, again, we do SEC and top 25 games going down the list. I got South Carolina plus 21 at Alabama, by the way, and I got the over 49.5. I actually think it'll be South Carolina plus 21.
No.
That's crazy.
Alabama bounces back in a big way.
All right. Missouri minus 27 at UMass, the over 54.5. Whatever you think about Missouri, UMass is the worst team in college football. They're Kent State level bad.
You're right, because my son goes there. And I asked him, I said, who y'all got this week? He goes, I'm not even sure.
Hey now.
There you go. All right.
He goes to the hockey games, but he doesn't go. I mean, it's like literally there's no tailgate, no nothing there.
Their best win is like over a Division II school in overtime right now. So
did they lose to Butch Jones, or did they beat Butch Jones?
I think they lost to they lost to Butch Jones, I'm pretty sure. They lost to Butch Jones by a larger margin, and they lost to Butch Jones when he was at Tennessee. Okay, so anyways, Texas, Oklahoma. This is the Red River Shootout. We all love this game. I actually have Texas covering the 14.5 point spread, which is not good for Tennessee. Oklahoma is a bad program, though, and I actually think the game hits the over 25 or 48.5. It goes over 48.5, and I think Texas covers 14.5.
Yeah. I feel like Oklahoma kind of pulled out all the stops against Tennessee, even though they played well last week. I think when I say pull out all the stops, I'm not saying played their hardest. I'm saying they pulled everything out of the playbook. So I don't know that there's a lot of looks that Texas is going to be surprised by. We're kind of past that point in general at the end of the season.
Totally agree. So Mississippi State and Georgia, I got Mississippi State plus 34. That spread's too big. I got the under 55.5. Georgia struggling offensively, and there are some internal issues with that program. So
that's crazy.
No way.
No, Mississippi State covering plus 34. They're not going to win, but they're not going to lose by 34.
Okay. All right. What do you got?
All right. So next, LSU Ole Miss, one of the best games of the weekend. I got LSU plus 3.5, and I got the over 62. And I actually think LSU might win this game.
Hey now.
All right. I'm actually picking LSU in the outright upset. I don't know what the money line is, but that would be my bet.
Dave going for that would be, but I'm going big or go home, and there's a better money line that I want, just like I did last week with Cal Miami. Anyways, Ohio State, Oregon, game of the week. I got Ohio State covering the 3-point spread, even though it's at Oregon, and I got the over 53.5. I think Ohio State's really finding their groove, and I think they're going to beat Oregon comfortably.
It's funny. I thought of that game, and I wondered if it would be one of your predictions, and I thought you'd go the other way. That game is where?
Oregon.
Okay. Here is why Ohio State will not win that game, is because every team in the Big Ten that has had to travel 2 time zones has lost. Not just lost this point spread, but lost, except for Indiana, UCLA. So I think the travel is a factor. So
that's crazy.
All right, what else you got, Caleb?
All right. Disagree with you, but okay. I got 2 more. Kentucky, Vanderbilt. I think Kentucky covers a 13.5 point spread, and I got the over 44.5. Vanderbilt used all their energy last week.
Hey now.
Yeah. It's a good story, though.
It is. And before I get to my best bets, and I'll do those real quickly, but Tennessee, Florida. Tennessee's covering the 14-point spread, and the game will hit the over 56. I think Tennessee's offense actually finds itself at home against this bad Florida defense.
Hey now.
Okay, this is the last week I'm agreeing with you that I think they do, and I think Nico finds a groove. But I mean, this is it.
Yeah, I know. If they don't do it this time, it's over.
I don't know where your dedication lies, but mine lies October 12th. I mean, if they don't get something going offensively, I'm completely off that bandwagon. All right.
Totally agree. My best bets, 2 of the ones I just named. I think South Carolina, Alabama, the over is the best over the week, over 49.5. Alabama's defense is terrible. There's no scoring.
Okay.
And then the other one that we just talked about, Mississippi State at Georgia. You can call me crazy, but Mississippi State plus 34 at Georgia is your best underdog to bet to cover.
That's crazy.
All right.
All right. So the best cover of the week, Kansas State minus 3.5 at Colorado. I think Colorado is not equipped to deal with success, and they're feeling themselves, and Kansas State's going to take them seriously.
Hey now.
Okay, I can roll with that.
And my Arizona BYU, that's the best under of the week, under 44.5. And my super dog upset, you are right, LSU was a good one, but Arizona State is actually a larger money line, so I'm taking Arizona State to upset Utah tonight because Utah has Cam Rising coming back tonight. Everybody's excited, but Dave, they're on the road, and returning a quarterback on the road to start, that's just too dangerous. Arizona State's going to pull the upset.
Over under on how many injuries Ole Miss will fake. As we see on the message board, it's 12.5, and I take the over easy.
Hey now.
Man, I wish we could set that as a sports book. record. We'd be good at that.
Final on our poll question, whose butt is most on the line against Florida? John Campbell Jr., Alliance Hurd, 43% of the vote. Glenn Ellerby, offensive line coach, 33% of the vote. Joey Halsey, 19% of the vote. Nico, don't you still love me? 5% of the vote. I want to thank everyone involved. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.